Hello, and welcome to Sleep Archive. Tonight, we leave the solid ground behind and submerge ourselves in the vast, fluid architecture of the deep ocean. We will undertake a slow and vertical journey, descending from the sunlit waves of the surface down to the crushing, silent darkness of the deepest trenches. We will explore the heavy physics of water pressure, the alien chemistry of the abyss, and the slow-moving shadows of the life that endures where the sun cannot reach. As we settle into the rhythm of the tides, we begin our exploration not with the water itself, but with the massive, invisible engine that keeps the global ocean in motion. Before we begin our descent into the depths, we must first understand the immense, planetary-scale machinery that governs the movement of the world's waters. The ocean is not a stagnant pool, but a dynamic, breathing entity, driven by a global system of currents known as the thermohaline circulation. This system is often called the Great Ocean Conveyor Belt, a continuous, slow-moving loop that transports water, heat, and nutrients around the entire globe on a journey that takes 1,000 years to complete a single cycle. The physics of this engine are hidden in its name, thermo referring to temperature and haline referring to salt content. These two factors, heat and salinity, determine the density of seawater, and it is the difference in density between vast masses of water that creates the gravitational force driving this silent circulation. The engine begins its work in the frozen, desolate reaches of the North Atlantic and the Southern Ocean near Antarctica. Here, the surface water is exposed to the biting cold of the polar atmosphere, causing its temperature to plummet and its molecules to pack together more tightly. As the seawater freezes to form sea ice, it leaves behind its salt in a process known as brine rejection, creating a layer of water that is exceptionally cold and incredibly salty. This dense, heavy water can no longer remain at the surface. Governed by the laws of gravity, it begins to sink, plunging downward in massive, silent waterfalls that exist entirely beneath the waves. This sinking event is the heartbeat of the ocean, a powerful vertical pump that pushes millions of cubic meters of water per second into the deep abyss. Once this heavy water reaches the bottom, it begins a slow, creeping migration along the ocean floor, flowing toward the equator like a sluggish river of cold. The architecture of this flow is staggeringly vast. The volume of water moving in these deep currents is more than 100 times the flow of the Amazon River. As the current travels through the deep Atlantic, around the Cape of Good Hope, and into the Indian and Pacific Oceans, it mixes with other water masses, slowly warming and becoming less dense over centuries. Eventually, in the vast expanses of the North Pacific and the Indian Ocean, this ancient water rises back to the surface in a process called upwelling. This upwelling brings with it the nutrients, nitrates, phosphates, and silicates that have been collecting on the ocean floor for hundreds of years. When these nutrients reach the sunlit zone, they fuel the bloom of microscopic phytoplankton, the base of the marine food web, and the source of half the oxygen in our atmosphere. The return journey of the conveyor belt takes place at the surface, where warm currents, like the Gulf Stream, carry the water back toward the poles to complete the loop. This transfer of heat from the equator to the high latitudes is what moderates the Earth's climate, ensuring that Europe remains habitable and that the tropics do not overheat. The physics of this circulation creates a layered ocean, where distinct water masses slide over one another without mixing, like layers of oil and vinegar. Scientists can identify these layers by their unique chemical fingerprints, tracing a parcel of water found in the deep Pacific back to the winter storm in Greenland, where it last touched the air 500 years ago. There is a profound sense of slowness in this system, a reminder that the ocean operates on a timescale that dwarfs human history. As you visualize this global engine, imagine the heavy, cold water of the poles sinking with a solemn, majestic weight, pulling the surface of the world down into the dark. It is a silent, hydraulic machine of unimaginable power, moving steadily through the deep regardless of the storms or the chaos that may be occurring on the surface. The stability of this circulation provides the stable environment necessary for the deep-sea ecosystems we are about to explore. The layers of the ocean are not static boundaries, but moving walkways of water, carrying oxygen to the creatures of the dark and recycling the chemistry of the planet. We rest in the rhythm of this 1,000-year cycle, feeling the slow, heavy pulse of the conveyor belt as it circulates the lifeblood of the Earth. The transition from this global perspective to the specific layers of the water column is a move from the horizontal to the vertical. The engine is running, the currents are flowing, and the stage is set for our descent through the zones. The journey continues toward the surface layer, where the interaction of light and water creates the vibrant ceiling of the marine world. We acknowledge the thermohaline circulation as the invisible force that connects the ice of the poles to the heat of the tropics, binding the global ocean into a single, living body. Our descent begins at the interface between the atmosphere and the ocean, in the layer known to science as the epipelagic zone. This is the sunlit ceiling of the marine world, extending from the surface down to approximately 200 meters, or 650 feet. It is the only realm of the ocean where the intensity of the sun is strong enough to power the engine of photosynthesis, making it the biological nursery for nearly all marine life. The physics of this zone are defined by the interaction between electromagnetic radiation and the density of liquid water. As sunlight strikes the surface, it does not travel through the water uniformly. Instead, the water molecules act as a selective filter, absorbing different wavelengths of light at different rates. The long, low-energy wavelengths of red and orange light are absorbed almost immediately, disappearing within the first 10 to 15 meters. This is why, if you were to cut your finger while diving even at a shallow depth, the blood would appear almost black or dark green, as there is no red light available to reflect its true color. As we descend further, the yellow and green wavelengths are stripped away, leaving only the high-energy blue and violet light to penetrate deeper into the column. This optical filtration is what gives the open ocean its characteristic deep blue hue. We are seeing the only scattered light that the water has not yet devoured. The epipelagic zone is also the realm of turbulence and mixing, where the friction of the wind against the surface creates waves that churn oxygen into the water. This mixture of abundant light and dissolved oxygen creates a liquid meadow where billions of microscopic algae, known as phytoplankton, drift and bloom. These tiny organisms are the grass of the sea, harvesting the energy of the sun to build the carbon sugars that will eventually feed the creatures of the deep. The architecture of life here is built for speed and visual evasion, as there is no cover to hide behind in this boundless, three-dimensional blue void. Fish in this zone often display a camouflage strategy called countershading dark on top to blend with the deep water when seen from above, and silver or white on the bottom to blend with the sunlit surface when seen from below. The temperature of the epipelagic is relatively warm and uniform, kept stable by the constant stirring of the wind and waves which distributes the sun's heat. However, despite its richness, this zone represents less than 5% of the ocean's total volume, a thin skin of life stretched over a massive body of darkness. It is a place of frantic energy, visual clarity, and the constant cycle of the sun rising and setting through the refracting lens of the waves. As we drift downward through this layer, the water pressure is already beginning to build, adding 1 atmosphere of pressure for every 10 meters we descend. The sounds of the surface, the crashing of waves, the calls of seabirds, the hum of ship engines begin to be muffled by the weight of the water above. We are leaving the world of air and entering the true hydrospace, where the rules of gravity and light operate differently. The blue light around us is becoming richer, deeper, and darker, shifting from the bright turquoise of the Caribbean to the heavy indigo of the open Atlantic. The warmth of the sun is beginning to fade, and the water against our skin is growing cooler as we move away from the influence of the solar rays. The epipelagic is the familiar ocean, the ocean of human experience, but it is merely the doorway to the true alien world that lies beneath. The architecture of the light is changing, the chaotic mixing of the wind is left behind, and the stillness is beginning to take hold. We rest for a moment at the bottom of the light, looking up at the shimmering ceiling far above, realizing how far we have already come from the air we breathe. The transition from this sunlit zone to the next layer is defined by a rapid change in temperature and density. The journey continues toward the Great Transition, the invisible barrier that separates the warm surface from the eternal cold of the deep. We acknowledge the sunlit ceiling as the source of all energy for the abyss, the bright battery that charges the dark world below. As we descend past the 200-meter mark, we encounter an invisible but powerful physical barrier known as the thermocline. This layer represents the most dramatic shift in the ocean's vertical architecture, a zone where the temperature of the water plummets rapidly with depth. In the sunlit zone above, the water was kept warm and uniform by the mixing action of the waves and the absorption of solar energy. But here, beneath the reach of the wind's influence, the physics of density takes control, separating the ocean into two distinct worlds that rarely mix. Cold water is significantly denser and heavier than warm water, causing it to settle at the bottom, while the lighter, sun-warmed water floats on top like a layer of oil on vinegar. The thermocline is the transition zone between these two masses, a steep temperature gradient that can drop from 24 degrees Celsius to just 4 degrees Celsius in a relatively short distance. For a diver, crossing this boundary is a shocking physical experience, a sudden and biting chill that feels as if you have plunged into a bucket of ice water. This thermal barrier acts as a lid on the deep ocean, preventing the nutrient-rich water from the bottom from easily rising to the surface, and preventing the oxygen-rich surface water from easily mixing downward. It is a zone of profound stability where the water becomes increasingly viscous and resistant to movement as it grows colder and denser. The physics of the thermocline also has a strange and fascinating effect on the behavior of sound waves traveling through the ocean. Because sound travels faster in warm water and faster in high pressure, the drop in temperature here slows the sound waves down, while the increasing pressure below speeds them up. This creates a sound channel or a waveguide at the base of the thermocline where low-frequency sounds can become trapped and travel for thousands of kilometers without losing their energy. Whales and submarines utilize this acoustic corridor to communicate across entire ocean basins, their calls sliding along the density layers of the thermocline like a train on a track. Visually, the water here is often filled with a shimmering, optical distortion known as a Schlieren effect, similar to the haze seen above hot pavement on a summer day. This blurring is caused by the mixing of waters with different densities and refractive indices, a visual signal that the physical properties of the environment are changing. As we pass through this invisible floor, we are effectively leaving the weather of the surface behind. There are no storms here, no seasons, and no daily cycle of warming and cooling. The thermocline marks the beginning of the permanent ocean, a realm where the temperature remains locked in a near-freezing stasis for centuries. The architecture of the ocean is now defined by the cold, a pervasive chill that slows the metabolic rates of the creatures that live here, forcing them to live life in slow motion. We have crossed the threshold of the deep, and the water around us is no longer a chaotic mixing fluid, but a heavy, stratified solid wall of blue. The light from above has faded to a dim, twilight glow, barely enough to see your hand in front of your face. We rest in the cold stability of this transition, feeling the density of the water pressing in against us as the temperature gauge hits bottom. The transition from the thermal barrier to the diminishing light is a move from the physical to the visual. The journey continues toward the twilight zone, the mesopelagic, where the last traces of the sun struggle against the encroaching dark. We acknowledge the thermocline as the great divider, the thermal gate that protects the cold sanctity of the abyss. As we descend below the 200-meter mark, the vibrant blue of the surface world begins to fade into a deep, eerie indigo, marking our entry into the mesopelagic zone, often called the twilight zone. Extending down to approximately 1,000 meters, this is the realm of the Middle Ocean, a place of perpetual dusk where the sun is no longer a source of heat, but merely a faint, distant memory overhead. The physics of light in this zone is defined by scarcity. The photons that manage to penetrate this deep are few and far between, insufficient to support the energy demands of photosynthesis. Consequently, there are no plants here, no floating meadows of algae to serve as the base of the food chain. Every creature in the twilight zone is either a hunter or a scavenger, waiting for food to fall from the world above. The architecture of life in the mesopelagic is heavily influenced by this lack of light, leading to the evolution of some of the most sensitive visual systems on the planet. Many of the fish here, such as the spookfish, possess massive tubular eyes that are permanently fixed upward, locked onto the faint silhouette of the surface in a desperate attempt to spot the shadow of prey swimming overhead. To survive in this shadowy world, biology has developed two primary strategies for invisibility: transparency and the manipulation of color. In the upper reaches of the twilight zone, many creatures like the glass squid are entirely transparent, their bodies made of clear, gelatinous tissue that allows the faint ambient light to pass right through them without casting a shadow. Deeper in the zone, where only the faintest blue light remains, many animals are colored a deep, vivid red or a velvety black. Because the physics of water absorbs red light so quickly, a red creature in a blue environment appears completely black, rendering it invisible to predators without the need for complex camouflage patterns. However, the most defining feature of the mesopelagic is not its static inhabitants, but a massive, living structure known as the deep scattering layer. Discovered during World War II by sonar operators who were confused by a phantom bottom that seemed to move up and down each day, this layer is actually composed of billions of fish, krill, and jellyfish packed so tightly that they reflect sound waves. This dense cloud of life performs the Deal vertical migration, the largest migration of biomass on the planet, occurring every single night in every ocean of the world. As the sun sets, this massive army of creatures rises from the safety of the dark depths to the surface to feed under the cover of night, and as the sun rises, they retreat back down into the gloom to avoid being eaten. This vertical commute acts as a biological pump, physically transporting tons of carbon and nutrients from the surface down into the deep ocean, fueling the ecosystems of the abyss. It is here, in the deepening dark, that we encounter the first sparks of bioluminescence, the ability of living things to produce their own cold light through a chemical reaction between a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. In the twilight zone, this light is not just for signaling, but is often used for a sophisticated form of camouflage known as counter-illumination. Creatures like the lanternfish and the hatchetfish possess rows of tiny light-producing organs, called photophores, along their bellies. By carefully adjusting the brightness of these lights to match the faint intensity of the sunlight coming from above, they effectively erase their own silhouette, blending perfectly with the light when viewed from below. The architecture of this camouflage is a mastery of physics, a biological cloaking device that balances internal light with external light to achieve invisibility. As we drift deeper toward the bottom of this zone, the last vestiges of the sun are finally extinguished, swallowed by the immense volume of the water above. The indigo fades to black, and the temperature stabilizes at a frigid 4 degrees Celsius. We are approaching the boundary where the eyes of the surface world become useless and other senses must take over. The mesopelagic has been a realm of shadows and trickery, a place where life plays a constant game of hide and seek in the dim light. But below us lies the midnight zone, a world of absolute and eternal darkness where the sun has not shone for billions of years. The transition from the twilight to the black is a move from the barely visible to the invisible. The journey continues toward the physics of pressure, the crushing force that defines the architecture of every living thing in the deep. We acknowledge the twilight zone as the great filter, the final frontier of the visual world before the long fall into the night. As we leave the last fading rays of the twilight zone behind, we must pause to consider the invisible, crushing tyrant that rules the deep ocean, hydrostatic pressure. On the surface of the Earth, we live our lives under the weight of the atmosphere, a column of air that exerts a pressure of roughly 14.7 pounds per square inch, or 1 atmosphere. We are adapted to this weight, our bodies pushing back against it with equal force, so we never truly feel the burden of the air above us. However, water is approximately 800 times denser than air, and as we descend into the ocean, the weight of the fluid column above us accumulates with terrifying speed. The physics of the deep dictates that for every 10 meters we descend, the pressure increases by 1 additional atmosphere. By the time we reach the bottom of the mesopelagic zone at 1,000 meters, the pressure is 100 times greater than at the surface. To visualize this force, imagine having a large elephant stand on your thumb. That is the approximate weight pressing against every square inch of an object at this depth. If we were to bring a sealed, air-filled steel drum down to this level, the immense pressure would instantly crumple it like a discarded soda can, imploding the structure with violent force. Yet, looking out into the dark water, we see delicate jellyfish, fragile squid, and fish with paper-thin skin moving with effortless grace through this crushing environment. The secret to their survival lies in the fundamental physics of fluids. While gases are highly compressible, liquids are virtually incompressible. Deep-sea organisms have evolved to eliminate almost all gas-filled spaces within their bodies, such as lungs or swim bladders, which would be instant liabilities in the abyss. Instead, their tissues are completely saturated with water and fluids that match the density of the surrounding ocean. Because the internal pressure of their fluids pushes outward with the exact same force as the ocean pushes inward, they do not get crushed. They exist in a state of perfect hydrostatic equilibrium. The pressure does not act like a weight pressing down from above, but rather as a uniform squeezing force acting from every possible direction at once, holding the creature together rather than flattening it. However, the challenge of pressure goes deeper than just the structural integrity of the body. It attacks the very chemistry of life itself. At these extreme depths, the intense pressure can actually force water molecules into the complex 3D structures of proteins and enzymes, warping their shapes and rendering them useless. To combat this, deep-sea life has evolved a unique cellular defense, the production of specialized molecules called piezolites, or pressure stabilizers. The most common of these is a compound known as trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, which acts as a chemical brace, binding to water molecules and preventing them from distorting the proteins. Interestingly, this chemical is what gives marine fish their distinct fishy smell. The deeper a fish lives, the more TMAO it must accumulate in its cells to survive the crushing weight. This molecular adaptation is so critical that it may set the ultimate depth limit for fish. Below a certain point, the concentration of TMAO required would make the cells too salty to function. The physics of pressure also affects the viscosity of biological membranes, causing the fats in cell walls to become stiff and rigid, much like butter hardening in a refrigerator. In response, deep-sea creatures build their cell membranes from unsaturated fatty acids similar to vegetable oil, which remain fluid and flexible even under the dual assault of high pressure and freezing temperatures. There is a profound elegance in these adaptations, a reminder that life is not fragile, but infinitely malleable, capable of finding a solution to even the most hostile physical constraints. As we continue our descent, the pressure gauge climbs higher and higher, a silent testament to the millions of tons of water now stacked above our heads. We are entering a realm where the environment itself is a vice, clamping down on every molecule with relentless force. We rest in the knowledge of this invisible power, respecting the pressure not as an enemy, but as the architect that shapes the strange and beautiful forms of the deep. The transition from the physics of the crush to the biology of the dark is a move from the force to the inhabitants. The journey continues toward the midnight zone, the bathypelagic, where the creatures of the dark wait in eternal silence for a meal that may never come. We acknowledge the pressure as the gatekeeper of the deep, the force that keeps the monsters of the abyss safely locked away from the surface world. We have now crossed the 1,000-meter line, leaving the last faint traces of the twilight behind to enter the bathypelagic zone, widely known as the Midnight Zone. This is the largest ecosystem on Earth by volume, a vast, three-dimensional void of absolute darkness that extends down to 4,000 meters. The physics of light here is simple. There is none. We have entered the aphotic zone, a realm where the sun has never touched and where photosynthesis is physically impossible. In this eternal blackness, the primary challenge for life is not pressure or cold, but starvation. Food is incredibly scarce, limited to the occasional marine snow drifting from above or the rare chance of encountering another living creature in the dark. Consequently, the biology of the Midnight Zone is defined by extreme energy conservation and the evolution of the sit-and-wait predator. Unlike the muscular, fast-swimming tuna or sharks of the surface, the creatures here cannot afford the caloric cost of chasing prey. Instead, they have evolved into biological traps, hanging motionless in the water column for days or even weeks, waiting for a victim to swim within striking range. Their bodies are often soft, flabby, and watery, lacking the dense muscle mass and heavy skeletons of their shallow water cousins to remain neutrally buoyant without expending energy. The iconic resident of this zone is the anglerfish, a creature that has turned the darkness into a weapon. Protruding from its forehead is a modified fin spine, acting as a fishing rod, tipped with a glowing bulb of bioluminescent bacteria called an esker. In the pitch black, this glowing lure mimics the appearance of a small, drifting worm or shrimp, irresistible to hungry prey looking for a meal. When a curious fish approaches the light, the anglerfish snaps its massive, translucent jaws shut, inhaling the victim in milliseconds. The architecture of the mouth in this zone is terrifyingly efficient. Many species, such as the gulper eel or the viperfish, possess jaws that can unhinge to swallow prey larger than themselves. This is a necessity born of scarcity. In a world where you might only find food once a month, you must be physically capable of eating whatever you find, no matter how big it is. The gulper eel, for instance, is essentially a massive, swimming stomach attached to a tiny tail, a design maximized for storage capacity. But feeding is not the only challenge in the dark. Finding a mate in billions of cubic kilometers of black water is statistically nearly impossible. To solve this, the anglerfish has evolved one of the most extreme reproductive strategies in nature: sexual parasitism. The males of the species are tiny, dwarfed by the massive females, and their only purpose in life is to find a female by tracking her pheromones. Once he finds her, he bites into her skin and releases an enzyme that fuses his mouth to her body, dissolving his own eyes and internal organs until he becomes nothing more than a permanent sperm-producing appendage. He receives all his nutrients from her bloodstream, ensuring that when she is ready to spawn, a mate is physically attached and available. This is biological minimalism at its finest, stripping away everything unnecessary to ensure the survival of the next generation. As we drift through this zone, the only lights we see are the momentary flashes of bioluminescence, blue sparks in the void used for communication, defense, or deception. Some shrimp can even vomit clouds of glowing bioluminescent fluid to blind predators, escaping into the dark while their enemy attacks the glowing cloud. The silence here is profound, broken only by the rare movements of these phantom creatures. We rest in the terrifying stillness of the midnight zone, respecting the efficiency of life that endures in a place of almost zero energy. The transition from this zone of active predators to the passive accumulation of the bottom is a move from the hunter to the graveyard. The journey continues toward the silent fall, the marine snow that acts as the manna from heaven for the deep ocean floor. We acknowledge the bathypelagic as the dark heart of the ocean, a place where life waits with infinite patience in the cold. As we drift silently through the crushing darkness of the water column, our lights reveal a constant, hypnotic phenomenon that defines the ecosystem of the deep, the endless fall of marine snow. Looking out into the black void, it appears as though we are caught in a gentle underwater blizzard, with millions of white, fluffy particles drifting slowly downward against the dark glass of the abyss. This is not ice, but organic debris, the decaying remnants of the life that flourished and died in the sunlit world thousands of meters above our heads. The composition of marine snow is a biological mosaic, consisting of dead phytoplankton, fecal pellets from zooplankton, discarded mucus webs, and the microscopic dust of the continents. Individual particles are often tiny and light, falling at a speed of only a few meters per day, meaning that a single flake might take weeks or even months to reach the ocean floor. However, as they descend, these particles often collide and stick together, forming larger, sticky aggregates that sink more rapidly, acting as an express elevator for carbon. This silent fall is the critical lifeline of the deep, the only link between the energy-rich engine of the sun and the energy-starved creatures of the bottom. It is, quite literally, manna from heaven, a continuous delivery of food to a world that cannot produce its own. The physics of this transfer is known as the biological pump, a massive planetary mechanism that transports carbon from the atmosphere into the deep ocean sediments, where it can be locked away for millions of years. Without marine snow, the deep ocean would be a lifeless desert, and the Earth's climate would be drastically hotter due to the carbon remaining in the atmosphere. As we observe this falling detritus, we encounter one of the deep's most misunderstood inhabitants, a creature perfectly adapted to harvest this silent blizzard, the vampire squid. Despite its terrifying name and its blood-red cloak, the vampire squid is not a predator, but a gentle, passive scavenger, the only cephalopod known to feed exclusively on marine snow. It hovers in the low oxygen zones of the deep, deploying two long, retractable filaments that act like sticky fishing lines to capture the drifting particles of waste. When the filaments are covered in snow, the squid retracts them, cleans off the food, and eats it, surviving on a diet of dead plankton and mucus in the most inhospitable environment on Earth. The architecture of the vampire squid is a marvel of efficiency, possessing the slowest metabolism of any cephalopod to match the low energy quality of its food source. As we follow the snow deeper, the density of the particles seems to increase, a relentless vertical rain that never stops, day or night, century after century. Much of this snow will be consumed by bacteria and scavengers before it ever hits the bottom, recycled back into the water column as dissolved nutrients. But a small percentage survives the long fall, eventually settling onto the abyssal plains to form a thick, soft blanket of ooze. This sediment is the history book of the planet, a layered record of every plankton bloom, every volcanic eruption and every climate shift that has occurred over the eons. There is a profound melancholy in this sight, a realization that the deep ocean is the final resting place for the surface world. Everything that lives in the light eventually falls into the dark, transforming into the fuel that sustains the strange, slow-moving life of the abyss. The marine snow connects the two worlds, weaving them together in a cycle of birth, death, and renewal that spans the entire depth of the ocean. We rest in the visual quiet of this underwater snowfall, mesmerized by the sheer scale of this waste management system. The transition from the falling snow to the place where it lands is a move from the journey to the destination. The journey continues toward the abyssal plains, the flattest and most expansive environment on the face of the earth. We acknowledge the marine snow as the silent provider, the fragile, falling dust that allows life to endure in the void. At depths between 4,000 and 6,000 meters, we finally touch solid ground, landing on the vast, silent floor of the world known as the abyssal plains. These are the flattest places on Earth, massive stretches of seabed that extend for thousands of kilometers with less topographic variation than a Kansas wheat field. Covering more than 50% of the planet's total surface area, the abyssal plains are the true face of the Earth, yet they remain less mapped and less understood than the surface of Mars. The physics of this flatness is the result of time and gravity. For millions of years, the marine snow we observed in the previous section has been settling here, filling in every crack and crevice of the rough oceanic crust. This has created a thick, suffocating blanket of sediment, often hundreds of meters deep, a soft, creamy mud known to geologists as ooze. Stepping onto this surface would be like stepping into a deep snowdrift. Without specialized adaptations, a creature would simply sink and suffocate in the muck. To survive here, biology has evolved the snowshoe strategy. One of the most iconic residents of the plains is the tripod fish, a strange, solitary hunter that uses elongated rays on its fins to stand on the seafloor like a three-legged stool. By perching on these stilts, the tripod fish keeps its body elevated above the soft sediment and positions itself perfectly in the faint current to catch drifting shrimp, facing into the flow like a weather vane. It is nearly blind, sensing its prey entirely through the vibration of its fin rays in the water, a statue of patience in a world of silence. But the true kings of the abyss are the echinoderms, specifically the deep-sea cucumbers, which roam these plains in massive, slow-moving herds. One species, known affectionately as the sea pig, possesses tube feet that have been modified into large, leg-like appendages, allowing it to march across the top of the ooze without sinking. These creatures are the vacuum cleaners of the deep, consuming the nutrient-rich sediment, digesting the organic marine snow, and leaving behind clean trails of sand. The metabolism of life on the abyssal plains is set to the absolute minimum. In the freezing, high-pressure, dark, energetic movement is a luxury no one can afford. Some fish found here, like the abyssal grenadier or rat-tail, have extremely low muscle mass and swim with a slow, undulating motion, conserving every calorie for survival. The water temperature is near freezing, hovering just above 0 degrees Celsius, preserving the dead organic matter in the sediment like a planetary refrigerator. There is a profound sense of timelessness here, A footprint left in this mud by a research rover would remain undisturbed for decades, perhaps centuries, as there are no storms to wash it away. This is the largest habitat on Earth, yet it is a desert of resources, a place where life is spread thin over vast distances. The silence is absolute, a heavy, physical weight that presses against the hull of any vessel that dares to visit. We rest on this ancient seabed, looking out across the endless grey horizon, realizing that this dark, cold plain is the standard state of our planet's surface. The transition from this vast emptiness to the deepest points of the ocean is a move from the floor to the basement. The physics of the environment is about to change one last time as we prepare to drop into the tectonic scars of the world. But before we enter the trenches, we must understand the strange chemistry that governs the water at these extreme depths. The journey continues towards Section 9, the chemistry of the deep, where the rules of biology are bent by the weight of the world. We acknowledge the abyssal plains as the silent foundation of the ocean, the final resting place of history. As we traverse the abyssal plains, we must pause to examine the invisible, molecular environment that surrounds us, for the water at this depth behaves differently than the water at the surface. We have entered a realm governed by unique chemical rules, specifically concerning the solubility of gases and minerals under extreme pressure and cold. One of the most critical chemical boundaries in the deep ocean is invisible to the eye, but defines the landscape of the floor: the carbonate compensation depth, or CCD. In the upper ocean, microscopic creatures build shells out of calcium carbonate, the same material that makes up chalk and limestone. When these creatures die, their white shells fall like snow, often covering the shallower parts of the ocean floor in a bright white blanket. However, as we descend below 4,000 meters, the immense pressure and high concentration of dissolved carbon dioxide turn the seawater slightly acidic and corrosive to calcium. The CCD is the specific depth where the rate of shell supply from above is exactly matched by the rate of dissolution from the water. Below this invisible line, the chemistry of the ocean becomes hostile to calcium carbonate, dissolving the shells before they can accumulate. This is why the abyssal plains are not covered in white sand, but in a fine reddish-brown clay known as red clay, composed of the wind-blown dust and volcanic ash that are immune to the corrosive water. The chemistry of the deep is also defined by a paradox of oxygen. One might assume that the bottom of the ocean, being so far from the air, would be suffocatingly devoid of oxygen. In reality, the deep abyss is often well oxygenated, sometimes containing more oxygen than the warm waters of the tropical surface. This is the legacy of the global engine we explored in Section 1. The cold water that sank at the poles was rich in oxygen absorbed from the polar atmosphere. Because the deep ocean is so cold, and the metabolism of the creatures here is so slow, that oxygen is consumed very slowly, preserving a life-sustaining breath for the animals of the bottom. However, there are regions known as oxygen minimum zones, usually found in the mid-waters, where the decomposition of falling organic matter sucks the oxygen out of the water, creating dead zones where complex life cannot survive. But here on the floor, the chemistry allows for life, provided that life can adapt to the slow-motion nature of chemical reactions at low temperatures. In the freezing dark, the kinetic energy of molecules is low, meaning that the biochemical reactions that drive life digestion, nerve impulses, muscle contraction happen at a fraction of the speed they do in the tropics. This forces deep-sea life to live at a glacial pace. Some deep-sea clams take 100 years to reach a size that a shallow water clam would reach in 5. We also encounter the concept of pisophiles or barophiles, microbes that actually require high pressure to grow and reproduce. For these organisms, the chemistry of their DNA replication and protein synthesis has been altered so fundamentally that if you were to bring them up to the low pressure of the surface, they would die instantly. Their biochemistry is tuned to the heavy weight of the ocean, using the pressure to hold their enzymes in the correct shape. The deep ocean is also a reservoir of dissolved ancient carbon, holding 50 times more carbon than the atmosphere, making it the critical buffer for the planet's climate stability. As we move through this chemically distinct fluid, we are swimming through the planet's largest storage tank, a stabilizer that keeps the surface world habitable. The water here is old, heavy, and corrosive, a distinct chemical species from the frothy, warm mix of the waves. We rest in the stability of this chemistry, understanding that the deep ocean is not just a physical space, but a chemical condition that dictates the rules of existence. The transition from the vast plains to the tectonic gashes of the crust is a move from stability to volatility. The journey continues toward the Hadal Trenches, the deepest scars on the planet's face, where the pressure reaches its ultimate extreme. We acknowledge the chemistry of the deep as the invisible law, the set of molecular rules that separates the abyss from the rest of the world. We have reached the edge of the abyssal plains, and the ground beneath us suddenly falls away into the true basement of the earth. We are entering the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the ancient Greek god of the underworld. This zone begins at 6,000 meters and extends down to the very deepest point of the ocean at approximately 11,000 meters. These are not open expanses like the plains we just crossed. They are deep, V-shaped scars cut into the crust of the planet, formed by the violent collision of tectonic plates. The physics of the Hadal Zone is the physics of subduction, where one massive oceanic plate dives beneath another, dragging the sea floor down into the hot mantle of the Earth. These trenches are the most isolated habitats on the planet, acting as inverted islands, where evolution has taken a completely different path from the rest of the ocean. The pressure here is almost beyond comprehension, exceeding 1,000 atmospheres at the bottom of the Mariana Trench's Challenger Deep. This is the equivalent of having a fully loaded commercial airliner balanced on the tip of your finger, a crushing force that would pulverize human bone in an instant. Yet, incredibly, life not only survives here, it thrives. The dominant predator of the Hadal Zone is not a terrifying monster, but a small, pink, translucent creature known as the Mariana snailfish. This fish is a marvel of biological engineering. It has no scales, as they would be too rigid to withstand the pressure, and its bones are only partially calcified, remaining soft and flexible. Its body is filled with such high concentrations of the stabilizing molecule TMAO that it is essentially brined from the inside out to prevent its proteins from collapsing. Sharing this extreme environment are the Hadal amphipods, shrimp-like scavengers that display a phenomenon known as abyssal gigantism. While their shallow water cousins are the size of a fingernail, these deep-sea giants can grow as large as a human hand, armored in a plastic-like shell that resists the crushing weight. They swarm in the thousands, feeding on the organic detritus that tumbles down the steep walls of the trench and collects at the bottom of the V-shape like dust in a funnel. The isolation of these trenches means that each one is often home to species found nowhere else on Earth, trapped in their own deep valley by the inability to rise above the crushing pressure. Despite their depth, the trenches are not silent. They are acoustically complex environments where the sounds of earthquakes and the groaning of the tectonic plates are a constant reality. We are now as far from the sunlight as it is possible to go on this planet, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. The darkness here is absolute, and the water is as clear as distilled spirits, free from the plankton that cloud the surface. This is the ultimate frontier, a place so hostile that more people have walked on the surface of the moon than have visited the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We rest in the deepest cradle of the world, feeling the weight of the entire ocean stacked vertically above our heads. The transition from the cold, crushing silence of the trench floor to the sudden eruption of heat and life is a move from the void to the oasis. The geology of the deep has one final surprise for us, a place where the energy for life comes not from the sun, but from the earth itself. The journey continues towards Section 11, the vents, where we will witness the burning chimneys of the abyss. We acknowledge the Hadal Zone as the limit of our world, the final boundary between the ocean and the interior of the planet. As we navigate the frozen, silent darkness of the trench floor, our sensors suddenly detect a thermal anomaly, a spike in temperature that defies the physics of the surrounding abyss. Emerging from the gloom, we encounter one of the most alien and spectacular sights on our planet, a field of hydrothermal vents. These are the black smokers of the deep, towering chimneys of rock that belch massive clouds of dark, mineral-rich fluid into the pristine water. The physics of these structures is violent and energetic. Cold seawater seeps down through cracks in the ocean floor, is superheated by the magma beneath the crust, and shoots back up at speeds of meters per second. The water exiting these vents can reach temperatures of 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, yet it does not boil because the crushing pressure of the deep ocean forces it to remain liquid. As this superheated, acidic fluid hits the near-freezing seawater, the dissolved minerals instantly precipitate out of the solution, forming the billowing smoke and slowly building the rocky chimneys over centuries. But the true marvel here is not the geology, but the biology. For nearly all of human history, we believed that the sun was the sole source of energy for life on Earth, the base of every food chain. But here, in a world of absolute darkness, we find thriving, chaotic cities of life that have absolutely no relationship with the sun. This ecosystem is powered by chemosynthesis, a biological process where bacteria convert toxic chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and methane directly into organic sugar, using heat from the earth rather than light from the sky. These specialized bacteria are the plants of the vent world, forming thick, white mats that coat every available surface. Living in symbiosis with these bacteria are the giant tube worms, or riftia, which can grow up to 2 meters tall and have no mouth, no stomach, and no anus. Instead, their bodies are filled with a specialized organ called a trophosome, packed with billions of chemosynthetic bacteria that feed the worm from the inside out. Their bright red plumes, which stick out of the white tubes, are filled with hemoglobin designed to capture the chemicals from the water and deliver them to their bacterial guests. We also see the Pompeii worm, one of the most heat-tolerant animals on Earth, which lives with its tail in water as hot as 80 degrees Celsius and its head in the cool current, bridging a thermal gap that would kill almost any other creature. Life here moves at a frantic pace compared to the slow-motion existence of the abyssal plains. The energy is abundant, and the vents are temporary, often lasting only a few decades before the geological plumbing shifts. This forces the vent creatures to grow rapidly and reproduce constantly, sending their larvae drifting into the dark in search of a new chemical oasis. The discovery of these vents in 1977 completely rewrote the textbooks of biology, suggesting that life does not need a Goldilocks environment to survive, but can endure in the most extreme conditions imaginable. Many scientists now believe that these chemical cradles, protected from the meteor impacts and UV radiation of the early Earth, may have been the very place where life first began billions of years ago. The architecture of the vent ecosystem is a testament to the stubbornness of life, a pocket of warmth and frenzy in the middle of the cold, dead deep. We rest in the strange, shimmering light of this chemical fire, realizing that our planet has not one, but two separate biospheres, driven by two entirely different stars, the Sun above and the Earth's core below. The transition from this energetic oasis to the final reflection is a move from the specific to the universal. The journey continues toward the eternal ocean, the final fade where we will contemplate the sheer magnitude of the water that surrounds us. We acknowledge the vents as the hidden engines of biology, the proof that life will always find a way to tap into the energy of the universe. We have journeyed from the bright, wind-swept waves of the surface to the crushing, volcanic darkness of the Hadal trenches. We have witnessed the great global engine that moves the waters of the world and the silent, falling snow that feeds the creatures of the night. Now, as we hang suspended in the vast open hydrospace, far from the light of the sun and the heat of the vents, we are left with the sheer, overwhelming presence of the ocean itself. The deep ocean is the defining feature of our planet, a continuous body of water that covers 70% of the globe and contains 97% of its living space. It is a world of volume, a three-dimensional universe where the land is merely a temporary exception to the rule of water. The physics of this place is the physics of stability. While the continents drift, the mountains erode, and the atmosphere warms and cools, the deep ocean remains the great constant. It is a reservoir of memory, holding the heat, the carbon, and the history of the Earth in its cold, dark layers for millennia. There is a profound comfort in this permanence, a realization that there is a part of our world that is immune to the frantic pace of human life. The silence here is not empty. It is a heavy physical substance, a blanket of quiet that has rested over the abyss for eons. As you visualize this eternal ocean, imagine yourself drifting weightlessly in the center of this endless blue void. The pressure that crushes steel is, for you, a gentle embrace, a uniform support that holds you perfectly suspended without effort. The great transition of the thermocline is far above you, and the silent fall of the marine snow is drifting slowly past you, marking the passage of time in the most graceful way possible. You are part of the hydrology of the planet, connected to the rain, the rivers, the ice, and the deep currents that circle the globe in their 1,000-year loop. The architecture of the ocean is the architecture of sleep itself, a descent from the noise and light of the surface into the deep, restorative, heavy, slow rhythms of the bottom. The monsters of the dark are not enemies, but ancient companions, survivors who have mastered the art of living with less, of waiting, and of enduring. We rest in the knowledge that this vast, hidden world exists, ticking slowly and silently beneath the waves while we sleep. The water is heavy, the dark is complete, and the current is steady. The boundaries of the self begin to dissolve into the surrounding fluid, becoming one with the salt, the cold, and the tide. The journey through the physics and biology of the deep ocean concludes here, in the heart of the only true alien world we will ever visit. The lights of the submersible fade, the hum of the thrusters dies away, and we are left with the perfect, peaceful silence of the deep.